Hey, team players, and welcome back. This is going to be an amazing episode. Week 2 was so fun, so crazy, and I'm fun breaking it down. We got snap numbers, we got data. Who should we be targeting? Who should we be avoiding? Really diving into building the optimal team to win your championships. The trade review, trade recommendations, waiver pickups, all the stuff to get your team locked and loaded to dominate the season. Let's go.
We're so back, Joe.
We're back, and we got winners, baby.
Mick, looks good to see you, man. I'm enjoying that 2-0 is on the horizon for some of us. 1-1. Some of us out there might be 0-2, but we rise from the ashes just like a phoenix. But we have some things to talk about today. And I think the first thing that I'd like to start out with, guys, Santiago, it's good to see you, man. I'd like to start out here with Santiago's question because it kind of builds into a lot of questions that everybody's going to ask. And Steve, we got you there too. One of the biggest things that I think is super concerning for me from a fantasy football perspective is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I just kind of want to go down. I just want to kind of go down a little bit of a pathway here so it clears up some of the conversations that we might be having over the next couple of weeks as we move into the latter or into the middle weeks of the football season here.
Sure.
Philadelphia is a team that can win by not playing a conventional fantasy football kind of style of football that we're looking for. Yep. Philadelphia has proven the last 2 weeks that they can go up against defenses and just wear them out by attrition. I mean, they aren't going over the top. They're spreading the ball around a little bit here, but Jalen Hurts is not your traditional pocket passer. He's not your traditional quarterback. He's a very good football player. And where does this put the fantasy football assets that are around him? Well, if you own Saquon Barkley, you got to be disappointed by the price that you paid for Saquon Barkley right now. I am. If you look at A.J. Brown, you have to definitely be disappointed with the price that you paid for A.J. Brown. But here's the more concerning part, and this is why, I was hesitating on a guy like A.J. Brown last week, is that A.J. Brown for me, and it's proven over the last several years, is that he is a guy that can be hyper-targeted. But what we saw this week specifically is that the Philadelphia Eagles are not throwing the ball 10 yards or more downfield. They don't have to do it, and they're not doing it. So when I look at this, when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles in general, and I look at Hurts specifically from this question here, Santiago, am I worried about Hurts? No, but this is something that we saw last year. Hurts is a guy, if you go into the stats from last year, he had plenty of games sub 20 points, and he had plenty of games plus 20 points. So there are going to be games where you're going to have to ride it out, and it feels like a bad price that you purchased it at in the 4th round. I'm not worried about him because he's there. He's going to perform. He's going to do really well. A guy that I am worried about is A.J. Brown, though, is Devonta Smith. I still like Dallas Goedert because he is the tight end there, and tight ends are a little bit different in the world. But A.J. Brown is a guy right now that you can absolutely buy low on, but you have to understand what you're buying into. You are buying into a player that can be hyper-targeted. If Jalen Hurts decides to pass the ball more, he will get more of those targets. But there are plenty of players right now that are performing with a good target share, et cetera, all of that aren't playing in an offense that will not throw the ball downfield more than 6 yards at a time. So I am concerned in general about the Philadelphia Eagles from a fantasy standpoint, especially the pass catchers, but they are still going to be productive as a team. They are still going to score points. So would I buy into A.J. Brown? Not necessarily. Would I think about it depending on the price? Sure. Now, guys like Chase Brown, it's a concern because we just saw Joe Burrow, the doctor guy that I believe
Chase Brown's going to get the ball more, dude. Brown's a reason not to be concerned about. So
although Burrow is projected for 3 months missed, it is more likely that depending on this injury, if there's ligament damage, he will be out for the year. So
he's out for the year because you're not bringing him back for week 17 when you're out of the playoffs. He's out for the year.
Jake Browning who we talked about in the offseason when we were doing our Superflex leagues. Jake Browning is currently the quarterback. They're going out there looking for other quarterbacks. There is a possibility you could see some Jameis Winston movement. You could see some backup to the backup coming in for Jake Browning. You could absolutely see something like that. Now, the concern for a guy like Chase Brown, right, is that while Chase Brown is getting 100% of the carries,
Chase Brown should be a zero concern.
And he's on the field a lot, there is a very big chance that those carries are not going to turn into a good amount of yardage without Joe Burrow, because he is not the type of player that is super duper.
I don't believe that at all, Bob, because they still push the ball.
Am I concerned about Chase Brown? No, I'm not. I think he's going to be fine. Jettis, on the other hand, is probably going to experience more ups and downs than we think, as JJ McCarthy is allowed to grow in this offense and make mistakes. Going
off of last night's game, though, Bob, McCarthy, it's not like there weren't open peoples. They weren't letting him take shots. McCarthy missed the drive. It was midway through the fourth quarter. He missed the total deep bomb. They hit it. It's a totally tight game, and they got screwed on a jumping off sides at the end of the game. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
That would be bad. And Santiago, since now we've got a big old queue of questions, we got to jump to the next one.
Yeah, it's growing.
Don't be worried about Parasol. Don't be worried about Parasol not getting targets. He was the second most targeted player on the team, and he was only 2 targets behind Jennings. So don't worry about that. Do not worry about that.
Pearsall falls under that same perspective. So, like, people are talking about Pearsall, right? But when he's on the field, he played a lot of snaps. Like last week. He's going to see the field a lot, and I have no necessarily a problem with him, right? I'm going to keep starting him.
Your opponent is ahead by 9. He has the Houston kicker. You have Bucky. I need to know a very clear answer to this, Steve. Realistically speaking, how much is the Houston kicker getting you? Because I think Bucky is going to get you between 17 and 21. And if you're in a traditional kicking league, get your cigar out now. If you're in one of these crazy leagues that gives extra points for big kickers, you might have a nail biter. So I think Bucky's getting you 17 to 21. I think it's a good Bucky game.
Where I fall on that, Steve, I think Fairbairn is probably going to get you at least 8. That's going to be 2 field goals and maybe 2 extra points or something like that. So it's going to be close. I think you have a little bit of an edge there. Mr. Wumbo, to your thoughts here, having a lot of rookies is actually, one of the best things of variance when we talk about fantasy football. Last week, we talked a lot about TreVeyon Henderson, and TreVeyon Henderson is still my guy. But there's a problem. There was not a lot of volume there was not a lot of volume he was getting. And the reason that is that he committed 2 very critical penalties in that game. You go back, you watch the tape. There were 2, holding calls, and the coach was just like, "Hey, Rook, sit down. Okay, you're not getting any more work today because you did not do your job, and we cannot afford you to not do your job." Okay, but a guy like Scadaboo, as that game went on, and you can see in the snap shares, and you can see in the distributions that were happening,
Scadaboo is concerning.
He got more work.
I push Tracy a lot. Scadaboo ain't going away unless he gets hurt, as you point out.
But as you pointed out, there is a very strong likelihood that he will get hurt if he plays the way he played in college. So there is a lot of rookies to talk about. We will, if it gets brought up, we will talk about TreVeyon Henderson a little bit more. Ramondre Stevenson had a good game, and that was a bit unexpected for most of us. Mick, have groups of players want to combine a trade. Pearsall, Travis Hunter, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, ETN want to try to do a 2-for-1 for an elite wide receiver quarterback. So here's the thing, right, is that what we have seen through the first couple weeks of the season.
You want to put Garrett Wilson on that trade out the door list, though.
What we have seen so far is that Travis Etienne is back to being the bell cow for this Jacksonville offense. How important will that be to your fantasy season? It's going to be tough to say.
I don't know if you can say that all the way. Tootin put up a lot of points.
He did put up a lot of points, Joe, but in terms of total snaps right now in the season, he is the bell cow of this running back room at this moment.
Bob, I know the direction you're going with. I'm taking the other side of this. What I am seeing written all over ETN is white from last year. And just like Tootin or just like Bucky slowly started taking a little bit more. And that was the dude by October. I think that's what's happening with Tootin.
But get where I'm saying with this is that he is the bell cow right now.
Yeah.
So if I were you, he is one of the players that I am moving, because
Absolutely.
it is going to be a difficult time to continue to trust Jacksonville's skill position players if they can't have some cohesion
You
on
can't
offense.
outscore Cincinnati. You ain't going to outscore anyone. You can't speak.
Liam Cohen is going to prove to be a good coach for this team. I do believe that.
Might.
But Etienne's one of those players that is performing well right now. 2 weeks right now with plus 15 points in a PPR league. I believe this week he had over 21, maybe 17 points or something like that.
I think you're selling Etienne at his peak.
So what I'm doing is I'm taking Etienne and I'm taking Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
And I'm taking whatever other asset I need to do, and I'm going out there and getting Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley.
No, he wants a receiver. So CeeDee Lamb's the one you can buy for.
Okay. If you want it, I'd go out there and take CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver, you could definitely do that with Garrett Wilson right now, plus something else. People might be a little bit hesitant with Garrett Wilson due to Fields' injury. He might have gotten a concussion in that game. We'll see what happens.
You can't bank on Fields to be back. So what I would you move Wilson because together you're giving two.
You're going to have to add another piece in there. I think you're going to have to do a 3-for-1.
Or 3-for-2.
A guy like CD. You could also buy into the low-lying, what's going on with Jettis, but I'm not sure that would be any better than having Garrett Wilson at this point in time in the season.
Oh, I'm 100% sure Jettis rest of the year is ahead of Garrett Wilson.
I said
close.
So,
but I do think
said right
shot
now,
higher
right now.
CD Lamb.
Right now, I'm saying I wouldn't want to target Jettis. I'd want to target CD Lamb.
Yeah, but if Jettis was all I could buy, I would take him. I would take him for the upgrade over Garrett.
Got a trade offer this morning. They want Tyreek and Etienne. I'll get Chase Brown and Kittle. I like the idea of selling Tyreek ASAP, but I got McBride as countered. So countered with Jacoby instead. I do like Jacoby and I do like Chase Brown. Like I said earlier.
You're Nico, if I'm understanding this right, you'd be getting Chase Brown and Jacoby?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what the
name value wise, you should be able to pull out a little bit more. But I like where your head's at. That's a very good move.
Yeah, Nino, I would say that I would be close to doing that, but I'd be curious to see at how he counters back with that. I'd be really curious to see if he'll.
Yeah, you should get a sweetener if you downgrade from Kittle to Jacoby.
Jason, I'm up 48. I got Hampton and Nico, and he's got Baker, Bucky, and Evans. Chances of me winning. I'd put this at probably like a 35% chance. Because what you're looking at here is a Baker Baker against this Houston defense is probably going to put up at minimum 16 points. Okay.
Yeah.
I think at minimum Baker's going to get 16. Evans, on the other hand, if he catches a touchdown or 2 touchdowns, Baker's numbers all of a sudden go up. So if Baker gets about 20 and Evans gets about 16 and Bucky, Joe already said, is at 21, you're going to need Nico to overcome that by a decent margin.
He's also got Omari and Hampton and 40 in the bag. The absolute peak that the 3 Tampa guys are going to give him is 70. So he only needs to get 22 points between Nico and Hampton. It's going to happen.
Again,
absolute peak scenario, dude. I would have you rated as like a 95% win.
Again, I'm not going to
drinking, dude. You won.
I'm not going to oversell Houston's offense because their offensive line was pretty bad last week.
Yeah, but there's also the element that Tampa doesn't have to max out.
And Jason is also up 20, and I have Genty, and he's got Nico and Igbuka. Chances of me winning.
This one, on the other hand, I'm not as confident in.
Yeah, I'm not as solid on that, but I do think that Genty is going to be featured a decent amount in this game.
Genty would have to outscore Igbuka by 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably relevant because it's probably I would figure that either Nico or Igbuka would clear that 20.
Yes.
Fairly easily. One of those guys would clear that 20. And then whoever's battling between Genty, it would probably clear the other one. I think this one has a chance.
Yeah, this is a 50-50 in my mind, but Genty has to outscore Igbuka by 4 for you to win.
I think it's close. Alejandro, what a week. I need Bucky, Igbuka, and Bowers magic if he plays. This week, I would say this week was
What do you mean if he plays? You're all in on him.
This week
He's
was wild.
In your lineup right now. There's no one to switch him with.
One of the things that one of the things that threw me off, Joe, and I talked to you about this the other day, was just the total just blowing of the load of Russell Wilson. And he was like, the Giants just looked like something else. And nobody in any format, anywhere.
I played against neighbors in all but one of my Survivor leagues. And guess what? All but one of my Survivor leagues are going home.
Yeah.
It was insane.
It was disappointing. If it's regular scoring, Steve, I think you got a fair chance. I think you got a puncher's chance. As long as he doesn't pull a Parker Romo. Yeah. When I was watching that game, and I was, and after I put my son to sleep, watching the stats on the Atlanta game, just watching Parker Romo just score all the points was just wild. Yeah, I do think Travis Hunter is a hard person to own right now. What we said last week about him what we said last week about getting the stats and the underneath targets, et cetera, that were screen passes for BTJ last year. If he plays more snaps on defense, which he did last week, he played more snaps on defense, I believe, than he did on the offense, which is problematic, right? I mean, he still got 6 targets, which is good to see, and he still ran 27 routes. Okay, so over half the time that he was on the field on offense, he ran a route. So,
yeah, and I want to put a word of caution out there, though, because the thing with them is you're not playing the Bengals receiving core every week. Look at most of the teams that are division. There's one guy, which Hunter's the corner too, so they can afford missing him out. I think that there might be a little bit more circumstantial of him getting that many defensive snaps based upon an opponent. And I want to see it. If we're still having this conversation week 5, I'm with you, Wumbo. But I think that a lot of that is who else is going to cover Higgins, because not many people can.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at it, he had the same total number of snaps. So I think they're going to try to get him the same total number of snaps continuously over the next couple of weeks. And how they're distributed. No, I mean, the same total number of snaps on the field. But how they're distributed,
the distribution going closer to 75% on offense. I think
going to be varied every game. Santiago, when I look at this, who do I start at flex? Mason with Aaron Jones missing week 3, or Pearsall? I'd have to look at the matchups this week. Let me pull up the week 3. Let me pull up the week 3 matchup.
My gut for going through that with it being PPR is Pearsall being the number 2 targeted guy, even with Mac Jones in the house. Right. That's my gut. But let me pull. Yeah. I'm with Bob. I'm pulling up the schedule right now for week 3.
Yeah, I have
so
it right here.
About the night. You guys asked about the future.
My initial lean, as I look at this on my initial lean here, is that both plays are good plays. So my initial lean is to say that both plays are good plays with a slight lean to Pearsall. The reason I like Pearsall a little bit more is the fact that the Cardinals could not throw the hammer on they couldn't. The Panthers this week, and a lot of those
plays tried to lose that game,
and a lot of those plays went to Hunter Renfrow towards the end of that game, and
that was gross.
It felt like Bryce Young was hyper targeting Renfrow and Tet, and you could easily see Mac Jones dismantling this offense to a degree. Because here's the thing: the best cornerback for the Cardinals, is going to be most likely on Jennings for a decent amount of that game. I think Pearsall is going to have a good game, but also Vikings against the Bengals. That's a pretty good matchup to take advantage of. If Aaron Jones is out, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Mason, but we'll see how J.J. McCarthy goes. So my initial lean here on Monday is
I don't know about that.
My initial lean is
Pearsall. Watching how Minnesota abandoned the run last night when they didn't have to was very concerning. There were a couple of teams yesterday that abandoned the run and lost because of it. Minnesota and Pittsburgh being the 2 prime examples. And that's my concern. And Arizona's not going 3-0. I mean, I can just tell you that outright. And I'm pretty sure Pearsall is going to be part of the thrashing that gets San Francisco over the edge.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fair assessment to make. It's a fair assessment to make. I would.
So, both. Back to your trade before, you should get a little bit of a sweetener if it's Jacoby and Brown, just because of the name recognition. You'll probably be able to do it. know. I understand what you're saying. You got McBride, so there's no value in getting Kittle.
But when I look at this team, Nino, your players are on the upswing. 2 of your players on the upswing, one of them potentially on the downswing. But I think that overall, when you look at your team, you have Neighbors, Iomanner, and Franklin. Franklin and Iomanner both are showing that they are worth targeting in the offenses that they're in. And Iomanner over 2 weeks has gotten really good targets. Troy Franklin took a higher seat this week because Sutton was being covered like white on rice. So you look at it and you say, okay, well, is this going to happen with Franklin every week? It's worth taking a chance on it. Personally, would I want Kittle with the injury and stuff? I'm not sure, because I probably wouldn't start him over McBride unless it was McBride's bye week. Yeah, and if Jacoby has a bad game this week, I don't think that's going to happen. But I would say that the person would be more inclined to trade you Jacoby, knowing that they're going to try to probably get at least fair. It's going to be a fair value trade.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that trade this week, though. Get that done tomorrow or the next day, because you're trading at the peak of ETN.
Yeah, and Brandon Aubrey is the GOAT. I mean, you looked at that game, and him and Parker Romo. This is the gross thing, Joe. In one of my leagues, right? I had Chase Brown, Henderson, Breece Hall, and I'm sitting there going, "Are you kidding me that these kickers are outscoring these guys?" And it was just like a tremendous kicker day for some of those kickers. But to this question, yes, it looks bad on the stat sheet I'm on. But like we said, I think this really was, and you kind of can take also Caleb Johnson having that bonehead mistake as well on the kickoff play in addition to this. But when you have rookies making these mistakes and you are in the throes of winning games, it is a learning experience for these rookies. And just like if they were to perform poorly in a regular job, there's a learning curve. There's a sit-down process. There's something to think about here. He's the best running back on the team. There is no doubt about it. If I don't have Trevion Henderson on my team right now, this is the best buy low point that you can have for Trevion Henderson so far. And I think that this is going to be the last buy low point for Trevion Henderson. I want to speak that into existence, but yeah, there's a lot of things that didn't look good about that. But when you see on the stat sheet and you're saying, oh, well, this did not, he had less touches than Antonio Gibson. Yeah, that's true. But when you look at how those snaps were first week versus this week, it kind of was very much different, right? Because of what we said. And Stevenson had a great game. Stevenson absolutely had a great game. But when you look at the week 2 usage, this is the very interesting thing to think about. Trevion and Stevenson split the goal line usage. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's encouraging. Early down situation, Ramondre dominated that. We figured that would still be a play early in the season. On third downs, Trevion didn't see the field because of what we were talking about, okay? And Ramondre still dominated the short yardage situations. So am I concerned about Trevion? No, because he is the most explosive player on the team. And if you watch the game, you would see that the moments that Ramondre Stevenson had the opportunity to explode and run it when he had the ball against this Miami defense, if you would have given that ball to Trevion, it would have been a touchdown. So you have to really kind of look into that perspective. It sucks that he sucked, didn't get the points we wanted him to get this week, but I think better weeks are ahead, and I would actually buy him right now. Maybe I wouldn't be excited to start him right now, but I would definitely go out and consider buying him. How do you feel about that, Joe?
No, I agree with that. So the thing with Henderson is I wouldn't be worried about him. He's doing exactly what a rookie development's supposed to be. They're getting him set up for your playoff run. Getting rid of him now would be damaging. Alejandro, I'll jump to your question here in a second because I just pulled up my answers here for Amon's second question of who are we on tonight. Long story short, I got both games as incredibly tight, and I'm taking the points in both of them. The over-under in the Houston game is spot on, so there's no real advantage there. But I do have the line too high in Vegas. So my official ones are give me Vegas in the points, the under in the Vegas game, and Houston in the points in what I have as a pure pick 'em between Houston and Tampa. So that's what I'm on for tonight. So
Houston's
Alejandro, as a backup QB, would you rather have May or Jones now that they play a great defense? Jones,
So,
they
gave
Jones the goal line push, much to Bob hating it. They did that 2 weeks in a row now.
I have a very important question. And I think this is a question that in the general fantasy football industry that a lot of people are going to ask themselves right now. Is this Denver defense more, and we saw it last year, right, is that this defense can be a very big ball hawking turnover-based defense. But
Sure.
Are they a defense that's going to prevent teams from getting yards? Because we saw, Cam Ward, again, a rookie, and he came out and didn't perform the best out of a rookie, right? And had 112 yards against the Broncos. And that's like a yippee game. But we knew that Tennessee wasn't going to be good to start the season, right? So, I have to ask myself, is Denver fully the team that is the lights out defense of the year, or are there going to be players that we can play from them? Now, as Daniel Jones goes, Daniel Jones with 2 good games in a row. That is very good for Daniel Jones. So I tend to believe that, Daniel Jones is a guy that I'm interested in. May is a guy that I'm interested in, but I do like Drake May a little bit more. But that's at this moment on Monday. I like Drake May a little bit more. How do you feel about that, Joe?
I'm not sure I like Drake May more. This goes back to a bigger problem. They're trading away their receivers left and right. There is something going on behind the scenes in New England that I'm not sure I want to be.
I think they're trimming the fat, to be honest with you, because they were so bloated with so many average to below average wide receivers and wide receiver prospects.
Yeah, but you would have done it before the season started.
Yeah, but now the season has started and it's the first 2 weeks and they're doing that. I mean,
But they got basically nothing in return, is my point. Like, they got Polk for nothing.
But I don't think they weren't expecting to get anything for him. I mean, the thing is that when you consider these 2 players, Alejandro, which one do I prefer? I prefer Drake May.
I prefer Jones.
But what I see from Joe, and this is what makes sense to me, is that when you have a running back the caliber of Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor is able to move the ball at will almost at times against certain defenses, it's going to put you in projectably better situations. Mm-hmm. So if Daniel Jones can go back to being...
I also think Indy has a significantly better receiving core.
If Daniel Jones can continue to perform at an elevated level and get that rushing touchdown every week, I think that both of these quarterbacks can put up comparable fantasy numbers, but a lot of people might feel a little bit more comfortable with Daniel Jones, knowing that Jonathan Taylor's there to move the ball downfield, and the influx situation in the running back room in New England might frustrate May owners a little bit more, but I do have a preference for May.
Well, here's the other part. Getting that win over Indy, all that fear, or over Denver, rather, all that fear that they had is, are they going to go with Jones, or are they going to go with
Richardson? I think it's cleared up. I mean, they're
winning next week against Houston, and when you're 3-0,
I just want to posit that while Patrick Surtain Jr. is an exceptional good cornerback, great cornerback in the league, the rest of that defense seems like it is susceptible to certain plays and players. So I am curious to watch future Broncos games to see how they can clean that up, because it was not an expectation that Daniel Jones would perform well in that game, and he did. And same with Jonathan Taylor. Smitty, in a 2-quarterback league, I lost Purdy. My condolences. I lost Purdy as well. As my second quarterback, and have Rattler and Ward for my backups. Mac Jones and the running back Merritt are on the waiver wire. Who would you get? Well, I'd probably pick up Mac Jones for this week, to be honest with you. Going up against
I take them both, though, if you could get them.
Going up against the Cardinals defense, I think the Cardinals like I said, can't seem to close anything out. I think that that's a strong situation to be in. I probably would avoid starting Rattler this week against the Seahawks, although there could be some garbage time there. But their defense was, even with injuries, was frustrating for Steelers, fantasy football owners and stuff and such like that. And then Cam Ward, in terms of this week going up against the Colts, I could see a decent game from Cam Ward, but not one that I'm excited to start Cam Ward. So I'd probably prioritize picking up Mac Jones. And I would also prioritize picking up Merritt. The usage for Merritt, you're going to go back and look at that usage, and you're going to be frustrated about it, right? You're going to say to yourself, well, why did this not go the way that we planned it? Again, the way that game was going.
Daniel Jones got hurt.
Yeah.
Not Daniel Jones. Daniels got hurt.
Yeah, Daniels got hurt. Eckler got hurt. So the game plan shifts a little bit. I'm picking up Merritt and I'm picking up Mac Jones. I think I could drop Rattler, but it depends. If I have to drop
Daniels' injury, Merritt, I think is maybe even a must start. Like I'm really liking him as a flex this week. I think you're going to go through him.
Honestly, personally, I would probably drop Loveland. Because what I see from Caleb Williams is I see a player who is understanding that Roma Dunze is worth passing the ball to. And he's
an organization that doesn't know what they're doing, first and foremost. And
Jawan is a player that I would want on my team right now.
Yep.
And Hawkinson, you can leave on the bench and wait and see. Now, that's 2 good weeks from a row from Jawan. Doesn't mean that it's going to continue to happen, and he could slide back down to 6 points.
But he started to poach a lot of the easy passes I thought were going to be going to Kamara or going to Johnson, and it is annoying me.
So the thing that's concerning, right, the thing that's concerning is that both Loveland and Komet's snap share is almost identical as last week. But Loveland's getting a little bit more of the early down work. So when you go in and you look at and you say, okay, well, where's there an advantage at? Cole Kmet was on the field for 61 snaps. Loveland 36. Okay. So they're obviously utilizing more passing situations when they need to. And it seems like Cole Kmet is either in there as a blocker the majority of that time because he only got half routes run on those snaps. So I would question what their plan is for Loveland at this point. I think it's comfortable to drop Loveland for Jawan. I'm not really scared about that. Also, with the number one priority, would you take Scadaboo or Franklin? I don't necessarily have a position of need.
Scadaboo. You always take the running back if you don't have a necessary position of need.
Yeah, if I don't need the wide receiver, because like I said, I think the targets for Franklin will continue to be there, but there's always the tendency Bo Nix will go back to Cortland Sutton. And let me be honest with you here. Ingram didn't do anything. They didn't even do anything with Evan Ingram. They used Adam Troutman. They used Kroll, I think, too. So, like, I wouldn't be foaming at the bit to get Franklin, but it's always important to go up and get a running back. Trade away JSN.
So, Adam, I'm reading this one in the comments. We got to modify this one a little bit. Because the thing with acquiring Hollywood is you're overpaying for a short-term benefit. As soon as Rishi comes back in 4 weeks, the value of Hollywood significantly declines.
But Joe,
so I'm definitely all for getting Puka.
This trade isn't for Hollywood. This is a fair, like, if I were to offer somebody
I'm saying because Hollywood's so high right now, you can get another asset that would be better for you in the long run instead of Hollywood. Like, if you can go and get a back, I would rather do that.
I agree with you. I agree with you from that perspective, but I think the reason why this trade is even on the table, right, is that Hollywood has a shelf life for most people, right? Sure. And you're paying JSN for JMO. Usually JSN for JMO straight up for Puka is what people would pay to get a guy like Puka on their team. And Hollywood is kind of just the shelf life edition. I don't see any need to tweak this, but if you did want to go after a running back instead of the wide receiver, I understand that. Would I do this? I think I would.
I would do it, but I would try to get a running back instead of Hollywood.
There are 3 players in that trade that are among the best options or 2 players in that trade among the best options at wide receiver right now.
See, I also think JSN has a shelf life too. You can't keep giving him 60% of targets.
Smitty, Problem Town. I remember telling you that. I went back to the tape, right? We went back to the tape and looked at that. JJ had a bad game. A bad, very bad game. And that, I don't think statistically we could have predicted that he would have that bad of a game, right?
No.
So, props to you for starting Jones. I'm happy for you. I'm using my waiver on Daniel Jones on the two teams I own, Jane Daniels, just in case he misses some time, and I'm scrapping if I can get him. Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fine. Their core of wide receivers is real. Everybody slept on Michael Pittman coming into the draft because of the back injury last year. He was just another performer last year because of that injury. He frustrated many of you as owners last year. But the thing is that he looks like he's fully healthy. Pierce is doing what Pierce can do. Josh Downs comes in and does what he can do in 3 wide receiver sets, etc. And they still have Jonathan Taylor. The Colts team is surprisingly, on their offense, is surprisingly very good right now. And I think it's something to take advantage of.
I can't use the word good in Colts. They're mid. Everything about the Colts always and forever shall be mid.
Well, when we compare it to some other teams in the league right now, yeah.
Well, that's the definition
Maddie, you have Jane Daniels. Do I drop Najee for Daniel Jones, Jared Goff? I think so.
I'd say yes. You want to drop Najee. I'm okay with that.
Well, I always like having the extra running back, like we just said about Cam Scadaboo. There's nothing about Najee that points me to the situation where that's the player that I want to own on that team. So if it were me, I would.
That being said, I think he's going to get a lot of carries and force the under.
There's a chance, but I would consider dumping him for Daniel Jones. I would keep my eye on Jared Goff because you heard me say last week. You heard me last week to say that I wasn't super confident in the Lions unless they did a couple of things. And Joe told you that this was the best bring back spot that you could possibly do for a guy like Dan Campbell, just throwing it in the face of the Chicago Bears. And that's what they did. They put up 50
beautiful.
Points. Sam Laporta, that's a concern. But in general, Jared Goff is
same thing last year. Laporta was
fine. Jared Goff is going to have good games and bad games. He has had plenty of games sub 18 points, and he has had games in the past plus 25 points. I think more often than not this year, you're probably going to need Jared Goff to pass the ball downfield for this Lions team to win the game because their running back room, while it's great runners, right, there's some problems on that offensive line. So if you get more points for passing touchdowns, I think Jared Goff is the answer. But in most formats, Daniel Jones would probably be the guy.
I think Goff is going to give you a safer floor because if Daniel starts losing these pushes for his touchdowns, Jones is a whole lot less sexy. I would probably go Goff as a result.
Goff is a safer
play. You're also
play,
not playing him all the time.
Yeah, Goff is a safer play. But I would drop Harris for one of them. Dan, good to see you, man. Just wondering what you're taking.
Live, baby. Click like and subscribe while you're at it.
Right now. Should I try to add Daniel Jones off waivers? Yeah, you guys, this week, if Daniel Jones is on your waivers, I would and you want a quarterback, I would really prioritize picking him up because, yeah, there's a chance that he throws up a goose egg this week in a couple weeks, whatever. And not a goose egg, but like a poor performance, sub 13 points. He's known to do stuff like that. That can happen. That's within his range of outcomes. And for Patrick Mahomes, what you're going to see, realistically speaking, right, is that they're doing what they've always done within the past year and a half, right? They're
that's not true.
No,
they can't run the ball to save their lives.
Well, we know that. They couldn't run the ball last year either.
Oh, yeah, they could.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't.
Yeah, they could.
They were quite pedestrian running the ball after Pacheco got hurt. They had Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was good enough, but again, when you look at this team, this is an average offense right now with Mahomes being a super electric passer at times. But I'm not going to take what happened yesterday as what Mahomes' future can be.
That's true.
Because I think Philadelphia's defense got the lights turned on a little bit week 2, like I did say was going to happen, and they performed better than they did week 1. Now, would I be concerned about Mahomes moving forward if we look at the week 3 matchup for Kansas City? We're looking at against the Giants. And I'm most likely starting Patrick Mahomes against the Giants. We saw what Dak could do against the Giants as well. I'm most likely starting Patrick Mahomes.
Definitely are. They're not losing 3 games.
But it'd be nice to have Daniel Jones as a backup there.
They're not losing
Josie,
3 in a row. They're going to destroy the Giants.
I also hated Franklin stealing all of Sutton targets. So frustrating to watch.
Gotcha, bro.
You heard me last week talking about Sutton was one of my favorite guys to go after due to the injuries on Indy's defense. They ended up just double covering Sutton most of the time. I even had Sutton in a decent amount of DFS lineups. It was very disappointing to see that outcome, but he is still one of the best first read targets for Knicks out there, right? So I mean, like Knicks hasn't forgotten about him. But what we do need to understand is Troy Franklin did play with Bo Nix in college. So there is some rapport there. That rapport is building up again. Mims has now moved to third wide receiver on this depth chart. And you're going to see a decent mix of Franklin moving forward. But I think Sutton is still safe. My backup running backs are Brian Robinson Jr., Montgomery, and Henderson is my running back 2, but he hasn't been doing anything. So should I prioritize Mac Jones or Merritt? In that situation, I would probably go after Merritt. If that's your running back room and you want a running back, which I think you should take because Merritt will get more carries over the lifetime of this season, and Mac Jones will see the bench again when Brock Purdy comes back. I would try to prioritize picking up Merritt. How do you feel about that, Joe?
Yeah, I don't. As I said before, I think Merritt's a guy that you're definitely going to want with the injury to Daniel Jones. Or I keep saying Daniel Jones. Can't have people the same names with Daniels.
Yeah, and in that trade, Smitty's taking Puka as well. And JSN, all he does is get yards, never touchdowns. He's like Ingram on Denver. Yeah, Smitty, this is the thing. Like when we talk about yardage plays, I mean, there are great plays when you go back to like yesterday's games, right? And you look at who did it without getting a touchdown, you're going to find some players did really well and didn't get a touchdown. And some players fell below their projections.
And the other thing, Smitty, is like I said before, JSN is not going to continue to get 60% of the target share. It's just not feasible. It's just not.
And Adam, so I want to bring this.
I would definitely do that if I were you, Adam.
I want to bring this point to everybody because this is the situation that Seattle is having. When you go in and you look at the snap count, Charbonnet still got more snaps.
2 weeks in a row.
He still got more carries. What I said last week about Ken Walker and why he wasn't really a true buy low for me, right? And why I wouldn't really want to buy into him is that what we saw from Ken Walker this week is what the rule for Ken Walker, what we are expecting to see out of Ken Walker. Yep. What we saw week 2 was an expectation, is that he didn't hit the 15 touches threshold. He had 100-some yards and a touchdown, 13-yard touchdown, I believe, in that game. Now, you look at that and say, okay, well, that's the expectation for him. He's never going to dominate the carries as long as Charbonnet is there. They are going to have a 50-50 or 60-40 type of split. And what happens is that you look at the Steelers defense, they couldn't stop Breece Hall week 1. There was no way they were stopping Ken Walker week 2. And so you have a situation here where explosive players against the Steelers are probably going to pay off. Will Ken Walker do this every week? Maybe not. But the Steelers do have a decent enough interior that they did stop Charbonnet. So Charbonnet, if used in the interior, is going to be stopped by teams like that. So if you were to play Tampa and play up against Vitavea, then that would be a problem for Charbonnet and probably be a better game for Ken Walker. This is the problem with owning these guys. If you own them, you're probably starting them. But I would go after Charbonnet because I think what we see is that he's still getting
That's right.
Good chunk of the situation.
And again, off of that trade before, that's a steal. That's what I'm talking about before. It's way better getting Hollywood.
So, Adam, I don't mind this trade at all because what we see is Debo is getting good looks, okay? He is performing well in this offense. He looks to be better, all healed from his injuries from last year due to the pneumonia, and he looks good. Tyler Warren looks real good, okay? He's having those Brock Bowers types of numbers. So I probably wouldn't have traded Tyler Warren, and I'm assuming this trade probably went through before the games yesterday.
Probably.
Laporta, in a game where 52 points were scored, and Laporta didn't see more, only got 5 points. I'm a bit concerned by that, but again, Laporta is one of those guys that will have his games, and some games will be better than others. Laporta saw 50 snaps of a possible total of 56 snaps.
Yeah,
okay?
He's out there.
So he's out there. He's on the field. I like it enough.
That's actually the bigger point. Detroit only played 56 snaps, and they put up 45 points. Like, that's the bigger testament.
Do I think this trade is going to be good long term for you? I absolutely do think this trade is going to be good for you long term. Egbuka, you sold Egbuka at a good price. You got
possibly his peak.
You got two super assets at the wide receiver position. I think this trade is fine. I really do. I would do, like, if I had Egbuka and I wanted to trade him, this is something that I would see as being a reasonable thing to trade him into. Adam here just had Burrow, Chase, and Chase Brown. What Chase should I sell with Burrow's injury affecting this offense? Low key in panic mode. Don't panic, Adam. When you panic, this is like you tend to think about the haves and the have-nots here. You're going to go back and you're going to look at stats that say the last time Jake Browning played with Jamar Chase sucked. And those stats absolutely back that up. He was not playing well with Browning.
He was playing fine with them in the second half of yesterday. 14 targets. A lot of them came from Browning.
You look at this and you say to yourself, okay, that was a couple years ago. Browning has probably developed slightly a little bit more. They've kept him on the roster, so he has to do something good for this team in some situation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to be
an the man a huge paycheck and the Bengals are cheap. That's what he did.
He's not going to be an exceptionally good passer by any means, but Jamar Chase is still going to get his fair share of targets. Now, the issue that you have to ask yourself is, this is like the AJ Brown question that you have is, how good are those targets are going to be?
Great.
Okay. If he gets 8 targets, Jamar Chase can do a lot of things with 8 targets. Okay. Mm-hmm. If he gets 6 targets, he can do a lot of things with 6 targets. Jamar Chase.
You cannot make this comparison, AJ Brown, because of the elephant in the room. The Bengals defense can't stop anyone.
I'm there with you.
The Bengals have to throw the ball. Chase is still going to get 8+ targets no matter what.
I'm not talking about the defense. What I'm talking about is the.
Well, I'm saying that's why it's not comparable to AJ Brown.
No,
AJ Brown can lose targets.
Listen, I'm talking about the target distance. Okay, if Jake Browning is pushing the ball downfield, so that's why a guy like Jamar Chase is still a player I want to keep on my team. Whereas I'm thinking about trying to move on from potentially a player like AJ Brown. That's just my initial thoughts on that. Chase Brown, I think, relatively speaking, will be fine, but I question how many opportunities he will continue to have to score touchdowns because he's not an elite speed kind of guy. So if they're not moving the ball, it is fair to say that a guy like Chase Brown might see some limiting fantasy numbers.
Yeah, but I think he's going to make it up in volume.
But he's
not going to be a 70% passing team without Burrow.
That's why I'm not really worried about it, because I want to see a couple of games with Browning or with whoever they have, whoever they go out there and get, because Chase Brown is getting 100% of the touches for a running back. And I'm not trading a player that's getting 100% of the touches for a running back on an offense that can still potentially be productive. So low key, I am not in panic mode, but I am on the edge of my seat. If next week goes awry, I'm definitely going to look into it, because the Vikings defense could be a team that they could capitalize on, but maybe it looks bad. And then you're in for another week of this again, and you might be hesitant and panic again. The schedule, here's what you need to know about the Bengals schedule, though, right? Is Burrow was a slow start, but also the Bengals schedule isn't great.
No.
Okay. It's not great because in week 4, they play the Broncos. He's going to get Patrick Surtain. Week 5, they play the Lions. That could be a shootout. It might not be. Week 6, they play the Packers. Another great defense. So if you are looking to sell, the player that I would probably sell, I'd either sell or buy depending on the price. So just put that into the ether. The player I would probably sell among all those other players would probably be Chase Brown, because we have seen Packers be pretty good week 5. If the Broncos come out and Chase Brown can go past the Broncos, that's cool. Sell him after the Broncos game. So I would at least wait.
Either way, Adam, you're keeping him on your roster for week 3, so you don't pay for the risk. Because that risk of the fear that you have right now means you're not going to get paid anything.
If I'm selling,
it's going to work out for you.
Yeah. If I'm selling Bengals, if I'm selling the Bengals, the player I'd sell would be Chase Brown, but I wouldn't do it until about week 4.
Yep. So, Wombo, to your point here about Mims, it's not a complicated equation. Mims is really, really bad at run blocking. And Denver wants to be a physical team, especially early in the year, and wear other teams down. So he only comes out there on a limited amount of plays when essentially it's going to be a pass. He's one of the tells, and there's nothing to be surprised about it. He's a good per route run type guy. They're not going to put him out more until he learns to run block. And he seems to be totally okay with not doing that and keeping his current thing. It's why you're going to see Franklin a whole lot more. Franklin's huge and Franklin blocks.
The concerning thing for Mims is the fact that he's rotating with another player. What I would want to see out of Mims is that he's not rotating with that third wide receiver at all on the Broncos, and that they keep him out there all the time on 3 wide receiver sets. But again, like it's going to be really difficult for 3-4 pass catchers to be fantasy relevant for the Denver Broncos, right? I just don't. Yeah. I just don't see. They ran a lot of plays. They ran a lot of plays last week. Bo Nix was on the field 59 snaps. And
that's below average. The average like 64.
Yeah, but I mean, like for the way that this game was progressing, like you would have thought Mims would have seen a little bit more opportunities. And that didn't happen. Got 21 snaps. But the good thing to say about that is of those 21 snaps, he was running routes 13 times. So, while the targets weren't where we wanted them to be, injuries happen. I think Mims is a hold because he does have some crazy athleticism. Dan, half PPR scoring. Is Emeka Egbuka someone you try and sell right now or keep? He feels like a borderline wide receiver 1 already, but long-term, I'm wondering what happens when Godwin comes back. This is a reasonable thing to wonder about. There are plenty of people out there. You just saw a trade earlier of somebody giving Emeka Egbuka and a piece to go into Debo, Sutton, and Laporta. That is the type of deals that you might be looking at. People, if you want to go after a guy like Nico or CeeDee Lamb, you're going to have to offer a lot more plus Egbuka to get.
I think Egbuka can get you J-Jet straight up, and that's what I would go for.
I think that's wild, but I don't think it's wrong in thinking that people are panicking on Jettis, like I said at the beginning of the show, and you could offer someone with a lot of talented upside. Let's see what this week brings us. If Emeka Egbuka goes off for a touchdown and 60 yards again, I would very highly consider keeping him on my team because that is very usable and a very good stat line.
No, I think, Dan, you're 100% right. He does have a cap on him. There's people who are thinking he doesn't. Give me Jettis. And I think you can get it. If he goes off for 8
if the pieces are right, you can convince somebody.
I'd rather have Jettis all day.
Recon, do we ever see the Sons of Anarchy gif with the dude free riding his bike going into the truck? Yeah, a couple of times. Here's the thing. This is how I feel too. As an RJ Harvey and Evan Ingram owner in, I know an RJ Harvey, I believe in a league or two. I drafted Evan Ingram in a lot of best ball contests. It's disappointing the usage of Ingram, but I'm not surprised because, again, we talked last week on Thursday that he was hurt going into this week. So the fact that they used Troutman and Kroll a little bit more excessively than they needed to makes sense to me for a team that wants to keep Evan Ingram healthy. RJ Harvey, on the other hand, I'm not worried about Harvey. Okay, he saw an uptick in snaps. Okay, his snap share went up. Now, when we look at when that happened, right? Goal line carries are still Dobbins, around short yard situations are still Dobbins, but we knew that. We know that going in, and he's the same way as Dobbins, but it sucks, or same way as Henderson, but it sucks having him as your RB2 because, your wide receiver core is strong if he's your RB2, right? But it's very frustrating because he's not getting the points that you need to be productive at this moment in time. It's very frustrating. So CC got a trade here for my Pickens and Debo for BTJ and Chuba. What do you think? So if I'm trading away Pickens and Debo to move into BTJ and Chuba, I'm probably doing that, CC, for many different.
I think you're doing that.
Chuba Chuba, okay, so Rico's snap share was a little bit different this week than last week, but Chuba is getting the ball. Chuba still looks impressive. He scored a touchdown.
Chuba's the only person getting points consistently on Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm not mad if I'm moving those players to get into a guy like Chuba. When I look at Chuba, right, 63 snaps, 44 routes run. He only had 10 carries, 6 targets, so not great, but he's on the field. He's on the field a lot.
He's still producing. He's still a top back.
I think this is a great time to buy low on BTJ. This is 2 weeks in a row where he had 10 plus targets. I believe it was 12 and 12, and he only caught the ball 8 times or something like that. So he had some bad drops. Again, Yips coming back from Trevor Lawrence getting into the routine of game time speed with a very talented player. Pickens is proving to be a player that's probably going to have boom and bust weeks moving forward. And I'd rather have that asset in BTJ than have it in Pickens. So for me, I think this is a no doubt smash. I'm taking BTJ and Chuba, and I'm running away.
That's right.
Adam, I don't know what he's thinking, but now he wants JMO, Warren, and Worthy just for Puka. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. CC, I got BTJ as well. We got to hold it down. Yeah, I think BTJ is a definite hold. If the price is right, people will sell BTJ, but you're going to have to offer a good amount to get him off the team. Yeah, the loss of Joe Burrow affects T. Higgins more
than
Jamar Chase.
No doubt.
Browning will make first read targets. He will get the ball to Chase. And unfortunately, it's going to come at the expense of other players on that team. So if you had the third wide receiver like Yoshivas, he's droppable. If you had Gesicki or Fant, they're droppable. I just don't see them being productive or people you want to keep on your team.
I disagree with Gesicki, but
yeah. The target share for BTJ is amazing. Yeah. Like I said, the 12 targets is undeniable. When you look at this team and you say like, okay, not every game is going to be crazy like that, but you look at it and still he's on the field for almost all of the snaps. He's running a route on over half of those plays, and he was targeted 11 times this week. So you look at it and you say, all right, that's nuts. You should have more catches. But it happens sometimes that wide receivers are just out of sync. Yeah, I do love how Debo's being used. Absolutely. 100%. Debo's being used in the way that he should be being used. But BTJ and Chuba, I think the ownership of BTJ and Chuba versus Debo and Pickens, I would much rather start BTJ and Chuba over Pickens in a lot of different scenarios. So that's where I fall on that one.
So, CC, I love this question. As someone who hates kickers, you're already winning. The other guys played his whole roster. Yeah, you bench your kicker. It's a power move. I didn't even need as many players as you used to win. Absolutely, you do it. Recon's right, and that's how this thing goes. You got the win. You take it, you go home.
If your league allows it, do it. If your league's not going to be, pissing on their bread in the morning, just do it.
Actually, if they're going, I want to do that even more.
Josh Allen,
kicks if you bench them too.
Josh Allen and the Broncos have me feeling like I just want to get out of the week with a dub. CC, I feel that. Yeah, Josh Allen cooked some of my eliminators this week going up against Russell Wilson. The second coming of Jesus.
Too.
With it only being 2 points, I'd be scared of a random point correction, but they're pretty rare. What I'd be more scared of is a missed kick or a missed extra.
I'd bench him. I'd bench him as the power move.
Recon, here's the deal, though, man. We kind of knew this going into the season, right?
We did.
Calvin Ridley is going to have a good target share. Again, Iomanor is proving to earn targets, and that's great because it's going to move some of that coverage that was, definitely going to be Ridley's way, and they're going to push some of that over to Iomanor, and it's probably going to be an even distribution, which you saw this week. Iomanor and Ridley pretty much had the same target share. Long term, once Cam Ward gets his head into this game and the speed, and he's able to catch up with the speed, I think Ridley's going to be fine. In the short term, it's very frustrating. And how many more weeks can you wait for that to kind of cook into place? Ingram, out of all those guys, Ingram is probably the one that would drive me the most crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you spent a good capital on him and he's not performing. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I would probably bench him and pick up somebody else until he proves that he can earn a substantial amount of targets in this offense.
Yeah, you probably get Jawan out there right now.
CC K9's week 2 usage still suspicious. It's time to sell high. We went into this. I will deep dive that for sure. We'll catch you up on that one, CC. Yeah, K9 and Sharps is definitely something to talk about. I still believe in Ridley. I just didn't expect it to not happen right away. Wumbo, I feel that. There isn't much you can do. You got to. I think on a guy like Ridley, the targets are there. He did have some drops. It's going to be a learning curve. He's probably going to pick up week 6. We'll see what happens. Like if I'm just stuck sitting on my hands for a bit because I have an Njoku, Scadaboo, Tootin in all 3 leagues and Judkins, Pearsall, Ridley, and Addison in 2 of 3 leagues, and most people want to see big numbers now. So as long as I don't go in the red while things get going, I think I should be fine without making a ton of trades. Wumbo, I think this is a very logical way of approaching things. Addison coming back is going to be a boon potentially for this team, depending on how JJ McCarthy performs.
Judkins will be too.
Tootin and Scadaboo are right there. They're right there, ready to take over whatever percentage of snaps their teams give them. Njoku, I'm willing to wait it out with Njoku. I'm willing to wait and see where that goes. He's a guy, unlike Ingram, where I'm probably going to still play Njoku, but whereas I would bench Evan Ingram right now. Recon, 97 to 89 full point, and I'm down. He's got Dicker and I got Nico. Will I survive? I think it's very plausible. I put your chances at around like 65%. The only thing that could kill you is the fact that. So here's the thing that I like about your chances is that Houston's defense is actually pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. So if Herbert's not able to push the ball downfield, there aren't going to be a lot of situations where Dicker's going to be.
They're not playing Houston. Tampa's playing Houston.
Oh yes, sorry. So let's go back to that. So Dicker is probably against this Vegas defense going to get more extra points than field goals. Okay.
Not the under, baby. He's missing everything. We're hitting unders.
Because of the way that will probably turn out. Nico against the Tampa Bay defense, probably going to put up a good performance. I say that Nico probably gets like 18 to 20 points if Stroud and this offensive line can even just have an inkling of protection, right? If he doesn't, he's more likely going to be around that 10 to 11 point frame, which then puts you at Dicker getting like, 2-3 points. That would be a little bit tougher to swallow. I think that Dicker's probably going to get at least 4 points in this game, a field goal and an extra point. Or that could all be extra points. I think it's really up in there. I think it's a good chance that you have though with Nico.
Yep.
You're welcome, CC, and everybody in the chat too for helping out. Alejandro, what's another wide receiver target for Ibuka? If you can't get JJ, what about BTJ after the bad games? Guys, I'd be targeting, again, BTJ, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, for the majority of that game, wasn't really performing to the expectation that many people had, and then he ended up having a good game after some, a little bit more time.
You might be able to talk the guy into Puka, given the concerns with Stafford's back.
You could talk into Puka, a guy that also, again, the touchdown upside is limiting, but if I can move Ibuka to get into a guy like JSN, I would highly consider it.
I would.
I said I would highly consider it just because
I don't want any part of JSN. He's one of my sell guys.
I think JSN is an interesting player to own right now. I do like it. But to be honest with you, if I'm selling Ibuka, I'm only selling him in a package to get either Jamar, Puka, Neighbors, or CD. I mean, honestly, the 1-for-1 trades, Ibuka. If I were to trade him 1-for-1 for anybody, I could see myself doing it for JSN, but I would rather own Ibuka. So,
Yeah, again, I think you can get some of these guys, like you're never getting Neighbors now. But
also, a guy a lot of people are going to be soured on after 2 bad weeks, plus the injury concern that he had going into the week is Drake London. People are going People are going to be really sour about the performances 2 weeks in a row. Okay. 3 receptions and a fumble this week. I mean, that's not what you want out of a second round guy. So if you want to move Egbuka and you like London a little bit more, now's the time to buy London. His value is not going to be any lower. Even if you go into next week and he underperforms again, his value is still lower than it was when we started this week and the week prior. So I think guys like that, if I'm selling Egbuka, I'm putting him in a package to get, you might even get, depending on how people feel about BTJ, you might be able to get him straight up, depending on how Egbuka performs tonight. But Egbuka, I'd move into BTJ, Puka, CD, London. And London, I think, is probably an easier buy based off of the performances than any of those other guys. But I would try my best to go out and get a guy like Puka or CD, primarily CD. Recon. A problem is, though, he could have easily had 2 touchdowns yesterday and have a boom game. BTJ was scared of getting hit, though, which is scaring me.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to be scared of, but the targets are there. And I think you have to follow the targets 2 weeks in a row. Trevor Lawrence wants to give him the ball. I think if BTJ has the yips, then that's a different problem to think about. But the targets speak for itself sometimes. And I think that over time, those will correct and he will be just a bit better. I have Fannin and Ertz. Who's the play in week 3? Deep dive that. Perfect. We'll get into that in a moment. And Recon, I have a 3-leg lay. Schaefer to win the golf tournament, which cash. Stroud to throw for 175, and Nico to get 50. I think it's plausible.
Shape, dude. Think you're gonna get some money.
I think it's plausible. So let's talk about these 2 deep dives here, Joe. K9's week 2 usage still suspicious. It's time to sell high. I have sharps too. Early in the episode, and we'll talk about it again today. Early in the episode,
you're definitely selling them. I mean, let's just cut the. I don't know how to deep dive this one. Tell you you're right. You should. I mean, you should.
So here's the thing. I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. Walker is going to be explosive. That's what he does. Now, the problem is
it's not A-chain explosive.
Like I said last week, is he's going to have to do a lot with a little, whereas HN gets to do a lot with a lot. Mm-hmm. So you look at it and you say, okay, Ken Walker had 13 carries in this game, 1 target, okay? But he only saw 23 snaps. They played 65 total snaps. So there is a mindset in the organization. And you go back to last week too, and I'm fairly certain that it was very similar. You look at it and you say, okay, while Charbonnet only got 36, that's cool, right? That's a lot. The distribution of when he's on the field versus when he's not on the field is my biggest concern for Ken Walker. Is that, like I said, if he sees 23 snaps and is involved 14 times, that's a good kind of involvement when you're on the field. But we want that to be up to 30, right? We want that to be in the 35 range of Charbonnet. We want them to see similar snap shares at very minimum for me to want to own Ken Walker and be comfortable about owning Ken Walker. The problem about owning the 2 of them is that they are not really one complete running back, as was the case with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery a couple of years ago and last year. You look at it and you say, I'm looking for thunder and lightning. Charbonnet could be projected as being a between the tackles kind of guy. Steelers are better at that. They're not good on the outside so far this season. They've proven that. So who took advantage? Ken Walker took advantage of that. Charbonnet took a back seat, but Charbonnet had more carries. So they are giving Charbonnet the usage when he needs to. They're doing that, I believe, to keep Ken Walker fresh, because Ken Walker does have consistent injury concerns. You go back to last year when we were talking about Ken Walker almost every single week. And by like week 10 or 11, he was still only at 99 total carries. He is not a guy that is going to give you so many carries. But when I said about Trevion Henderson and Ken Walker are similar to a point, right? Where you have 2 explosive playmakers who are not getting aren't getting extreme usage, but they are going to take advantage when they're given the usage. So is a guy like Ken Walker fun to own? No. Is a guy like Ken Walker very interesting to own because he has a lot of upside? Sure. But just understand that if say 5 of those plays that he had go under 3 yards per carry, right? And he doesn't score that touchdown, we have another week of should I sell Ken Walker? Should I not sell Ken Walker? Nothing has changed. It is still the exact same situation. It's just that he capitalized on the minimal opportunities that he had. And is he still worth a flex start? Sure, he is still worth a flex start. If he's a running back 2, you're still going to start him because he has upside. But do I want to trade into him? No. Am I happy about having both Sharps in him? No. If I have both of them, if you have both of them, you would have basically got 22 points, which is the exact total of one of a higher owned running back on the slate. But you would have had to waste 2 roster spots on them. They're both not going to have great games on the same game. It's not going to happen. You're not going to see 20 points and then 30 points or 20 and 20. You might see a 20 and an 8. You might see a 25 and a 10, maybe. But again, you're going to have to take up 2 roster spots to do that. And I'm just not confident that that's going to be a good strategy moving forward. How do you feel about that, Joe?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. I mean, you can't have both. I mean, that's one of the things with the Seattle backfield. There's no reason to have both. K9 is tradable. I'm not sure how high you're trading him at. It probably is the peak of his value. I just don't know how much you're going to get for him, CC. But again, as I said at the beginning of this, I didn't know how to do a deep dive when you're right. You should trade him. I mean, that's just the fundamental answer.
And then you have Fannin and Ertz. Who's the better play in week 3? My wild thought is Fannin because both Laporte and Ertz took advantage of them, and I think tight ends playing them may be a thing. So right now, Ertz's usage was perfectly fine, and what everybody was thinking was going to happen with Zach Ertz, right, Joe? Nothing has really changed about Zach Ertz's situation as far as I'm concerned. We look at Ertz and we say, okay, in this game against Green Bay, he had 8 targets, 6 receptions, and was relied on to be a touchdown kind of guy. Okay. Fannin saw a good usage, less usage than he saw last week, but he did see more usage in the slot. Okay. So what I'd be looking at when I'm making these decisions is I'd be looking at, which I haven't looked at yet this week, is I'd be looking at how does Cleveland's opponent do against players in the slot? So we look at it and we say, okay, week 3 coming up here, we have the Browns facing the Packers. So looking at slot, not necessarily at tight end, because I'm not quite sure how many snaps Zach Ertz took in at the slot position. I'm not assuming very many. When we look at that and we say, okay, well, not necessarily apples to apples there. So I'd be looking at and saying, okay, who was in the slot against the Packers last week, right? Who was in the slot against the Packers week 1? And I'd take it from there. I do think that Fannin is an interesting play, but he's not an optimal play from a usage standpoint, because while his usage was up, he still did not hit the threshold of usage that you would actually super be comfortable starting a tight end, but his upside is there. Ertz is going to need to get that touchdown in order for him to really pay off for you, but he is getting good targets and he is catching the targets that are coming his way. 3 for 5 with a touchdown and 26 yards.
And with Daniels banged up, I think you're more likely to get the Ertz upside than the Fannin upside. Just to go straight into it in the most direct route. Cleveland's projected to be one of the worst scoring teams this upcoming week, significantly lower than where Washington's at, even accounting for the injury. So I always lean towards players with similar problems. Give me the one that has a pathway to better victory, which is Ertz.
But Joe, garbage time. But
there is, I'm hurt, I'm checking it down. And that's a lot more powerful than in the inevitable garbage time.
But that's how I feel about that situation. I'd have to give it some more thought and probably revisit it on Thursday, all things considering. But I think Ertz is a good play this week, and Fannin, you might be a little bit more disappointed. How are we thinking about Breece's usage this week? Seems to be trending in a good direction. Started, hold, or sell. I think there are many ways to go with this. If you are on the pathway of hold, what you will see is great usage through 2 weeks. That usage eventually will pay off for a player like Breece Hall. He was disappointing this week, 8 points, I believe, in total. But again, when I look at this whole Jets team, it wasn't what we wanted to expect.
And the Jets are playing Tampa this week, so
it was kind of what everybody thought maybe the Jets organization would be like last year. They went back to being just like the regular Jets. But the thing for Breece Hall is that there is a very strong inclination that the best part of the defensive line, basically for Tampa, is probably that interior, right? So that's probably a Braylon Allen get and probably a Davis get, and Hall will probably still go to the outside. He'll probably still be featured to the outside. So I do think, and I am holding, if I'm on the hold path, right?
I'm probably holding bench is where I'm at with him right now.
I don't think you can bench him, but I'm a hold for him right now because it is trending in the right direction. Now, Joe, if you are on the sell part,
I'm not. He's not high enough to sell.
If you are on the sell part, I think his value is not where you drafted it at, but
that's what I'm saying. It's not worth it.
It's close enough there. So if I were selling Breece Hall, what would be the things I would be concerned about? Well, number one, I'd be concerned about Justin Fields. Justin Fields not playing and going down to Tyrod Taylor, that kind of sucked. But again, once this game was basically out of reach, Breece Hall didn't really see, the majority of the snaps when the game was out of reach, right? The other two backs did get more snaps when garbage time started. So
and here's the other problem though, is you can't sell him this week for the same reason we were talking earlier. You should never eat the risk of what does this offense look like without Fields. Eat the risk this week and then revisit it next week.
If you sell,
he's a hold for this week for sure, CC.
If you sell, I'd be looking to sell him into a player of the caliber of like a BTJ if I wanted to go out and look at a wide receiver.
I don't think you're getting anywhere near that. I think you're getting like Algier or Benson.
I said sell into, not that he would be the only piece, but I would wait for a better week to sell him. If you did want to sell him
at this piece right now.
Yeah. If you want to sell him, I would wait to sell him because Joe's absolutely right. You're not getting the value that I think he has. And when you look at the snap share, when you look at the usage rate, when you look at the targets, it is screaming a guy that is going to be good this year, but will be. And this is why he was drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds of some leagues. That usage comes at the risk of the whole totality of the upside of the Jets. So the Jets are a limiting factor in Breece Hall's, total outcome this year, but that was baked into his value in the draft. And if you drafted them where you drafted them, you understood that, you knew that after 2 weeks, you got one good week, one bad week. What will next week hold? Who knows? But it's potentially somewhere in probably in the vein of 9 to 14 points next week with upside. So, take that for what it's worth, but I do think that Breece, for me at least, is a hold.
And also, thank you for using the deep dive system. We love when you guys use the quick hit and deep dive.
All right, so let's get back into things here. All right. So having to store Pacheco on my bench for the next 6+ weeks until something changes has me feeling like number 8 on the board behind Bob. Wumbo, I'm glad you're bringing back those bad memories from the
love it, Wumbo.
Constantly on the back end. But yeah, I think one of the worst running back usage rates over the totality of the season so far, is Pacheco. He is on the field, right?
I went on this giant rant about why not to draft any Kansas City players.
Well, Joe, let me finish here. Let me finish here. He's on the field for the beginning of early downs, but they're not utilizing him in a way that is really worth keeping him. So while he could have value, but I think he only has value if the Chiefs are winning games. And right now, the
Yep.
Chiefs have had to play comeback quite a few times, and his value hasn't fully been realized yet. So, yeah, it sucks. He has to be on your bench. But I think by week 5, week 6, we're going to see what's going to happen because, as Joe said, there's going to be kind of a murderer's row coming up fairly soon with schedule dynamics that once he has a good game, he's a sell for me.
Yo, yeah.
Should I trade Etienne and Igbuka for Barkley? Full PPR 12 team, smooth criminal. Your mind's in the right.
I love the idea. Wrong player. Should be getting Bijan.
Your mind's in the right place, but I would want to go out and get Bijan. Etienne is still Devin Etienne. I've said this before. He is going to take hits from Tua, not playing, to his best at times in some games, but he's a player that is totally that 11 points to 26 points with potential upside on a week-to-week basis. Barkley is going to be fine. I think he's going to get his. Igbuka is a high upside guy too. I would want to try to go after Bijan instead of Barkley, but if I could get Barkley, I think this move is a move that I would consider doing while I still slightly lean Etienne and Igbuka. Everything Joe told you about Igbuka is probably true. There is going to be some limitations when Godwin comes back, but I do believe
you're
that
selling both of them at their peak. So
yeah,
I'm all for that.
I do believe that if Igbuka proves himself tonight, though, that Igbuka will be worth more to most people, on Tuesday. But I think your head's in the right place. Is Troy Franklin good waiter to get for Jerry Jeudy? I would not really want to trade Jerry Jeudy into Troy Franklin. But I could see reasons why you would want to. Again, Cleveland's
you'll probably get Tillman for Franklin, and you'll be better off for it.
Cleveland's a difference is a really interesting situation though, Joe, because they're going to have games where they throw a boatload, and then they're going to have games where they don't throw much at all.
Wait till the defense starts phoning it in. It'll happen soon.
Yeah, so like looking at usage and everything like that. Joe Flacco was on the field 66 times. Jerry Jeudy was on the field 64 times, right? Ran a route on the majority of plays, got 8 targets. I'm not selling Jerry Jeudy into Troy Franklin. I'd rather keep Jerry Jeudy. Wumbo, I have Barkley in a 14-team league, and I would probably take Etienne and Igbuka for him, but I'd probably wait to see Igbuka's targets stay. Absolutely. Like, this is the thing. Like, I think that trade, like, if you're moving Igbuka, that's the type of trade that I would try to build. I would try to trade one asset that I'm concerned about in Etienne potentially, right? With an asset that's ascending to get an asset that right now had a pedestrian by his metrics start to the season, who will eventually pick up and be great. So I like the trade a lot, but it would really depend on what that usage is for Igbuka this week. Would you drop Juwan for Ertz this week?
Nope.
I don't see a reason why. Both players, I think, are going to have respectable finishes on the week. When you look at,
you can get something for Juwan. Trade him.
Yeah,
Don't get away for free.
Yeah, Juwan right now is an asset that I wouldn't get rid of. To pick up another asset at tight end, because honestly, like, their outcomes are so closely aligned with one another, Joe. Like, for Juwan to really pop off, he's going to need a touchdown. Same with Zach Ertz.
Mm-hmm.
So I see them very closely aligned. Joshua, it's good to see you, man. I have McBride, Warren, and Fannin. Excellent. Love to hear that, because that's a great tight end room. I'm looking to trade one of them for help at running back, or a combo of a tight end with a wide receiver for an upgrade at wide receiver. Who should I trade, and what should I target? So if I'm looking at your team, Josh, what I'd be trying to look at probably is a varying levels of players, right? So Fannin, you could probably move Fannin to get into move Fannin plus a wide receiver to get into a running back like Jaylen Warren or something like that. You can absolutely see yourself doing something in that kind of category. Tyler Warren's usage makes him an ascending piece, so he could probably get you, into that Ken Walker tier of running backs, maybe into that Tony Pollard kind of situation. Do I want to trade Warren into Pollard? No. But if I need a running back and I'm not going to start all three of these tight ends, I would highly consider it. McBride is who he is. We know we really know what we're getting out of McBride. We're getting a player who is probably going to have trouble scoring touchdowns this year, just like he had last year. You're seeing, but he has a very comfortable floor because he's always going to have targets. It's 7 targets week 1, and then a boatload of targets this week as well. So not a boatload of targets, but it was what it was, right? So we look at it and we say, all right, I see a player in McBride that I can totally trade into a running back of a decent caliber if I add an extra piece, right? Maybe you can move into Josh Jacobs because he is going to be that player that's going to be very touchdown upside. If somebody's worried about their tight ends, there's been a lot of concern in the tight end world. Warren, I think you can easily trade into someone in that Ken Walker category, like I said. And I think Fannin, you could pair with someone to move into a Jaylen Warren. How do you feel about those thoughts, Joe?
I think you're right, Bob. At the end of the day, you do want to keep. You don't need to have three tight ends. So I probably am moving Warren of the group. Actually, I'm probably moving McBride. McBride would be the one I would want to move because he's got the most name rec. I'm totally cool with riding the 2 rookies. They're going to be giving them the ball, especially with Daniel Jones there. I'm cool with riding Warren. So that's probably how I would look at this. Get the name value of McBride is going to get you the most in return. And I don't think tangibly you're going to have that much of a difference.
Yeah. I think a guy like McBride, even though Cook had a really great game, I think a guy like Trey McBride could move you into Cook potentially.
Which would be amazing.
Jacobs, I think you can move McBride into Jacobs for sure because, again, Josh Jacobs has had good performances, but none of that elite Josh Jacobs kind of performance yet. And this offense is going to use him. So if I have McBride, I'm probably moving him in the Jacobs. Citizen, I just traded JJ and Laporta and Algier for Chase and Bowers. Fair. If that's Jamar Chase, yeah, I think that trade makes sense. Buying low on Bowers with the injury. I think that's fine, Citizen. I like it. I like it a lot. Selling high on the performance Algier just had. Nice. That's the trade you just had. Do you think Daniel Carlson can have a John Parker Romo night? I mean, it's not out of the cards, but I mean, John Parker Romo just scoring 22 points all by himself is wild. That is absolutely, or not almost 22
They're
points.
They're putting helium in the balls, guys. There's no way around that.
You're welcome, CC. You're welcome. Wumbo, I got him in a 12 team league in the 7th round as my running back 3. I would not take him because what if? Yeah, Pacheco. Yeah, what if? Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Smooth. Hey, Nick, how's it going, man? I'm down by 30, and I got Baker, Collins, and Genty playing for me tonight. Can I still win my matchup? I think
he's got no one else going. I think you do.
I think this is solid. If you have nothing if he has nothing else going, like I said earlier, I think Baker gets you a solid 15, 16 with upside this week. Collins could go from anywhere from 11 to 20, and Genty's floor is probably 9 points with an upside of 16 points. So I think that you do clear that 30 points.
You get without Collins.
I think you do clear that fairly easily. Nick, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up because the Steelers defense is a defense that if I am
a run and they can't run the game themselves.
If I have offensive players going up against the Steelers, I'm probably starting them.
As you should.
Because the Steelers,
especially your running back.
The Steelers do not look good on defense. Maybe they make adjustments. It's disappointing. DK didn't have the game everybody wanted him to. That's for sure. I was on DK in a couple of lineups this week in DFS. A little bit disappointed that he didn't turn out. But again, when you look at DK and you look at like his targets and stuff, right, is that he's probably going to be fine. In the long term, he's getting targets. 6 targets isn't great, but maybe Aaron Rodgers was the last hurrah last week, and maybe they turn it around. Going into the season, DK wasn't one of my favorite guys, but would Achane, King, Egbuka, and Rice for Bijan and Herbert be too much? No. I don't think it would be too much. I do like to hold on to Rice, though.
Yeah.
I would
What
like
do
to
you
hold
do
on to
with
Rice.
keeping Rice?
If I were moving Rice, I think I'd want to move into a quarterback that wasn't Justin Herbert, although we did see great things from Justin Herbert week 1. But I can understand losing and streaming quarterbacks is frustrating. It really depends on what quarterbacks on your waivers. Like, the Penixes, the Daniel Joneses of the world easily can put up similar points to Herbert, and you're giving up Rice for that. I would just try to stick
give
with
up Rice.
And Nick, I traded Quentin Johnson for Krosky Merritt, and I'm pleased. It
Should
is
be.
all. I think that trade like that is always a good thing. As we wind down today's episode, guys, we're going to be back on Thursday at 3:45. But just some thoughts in general, Joe, about this week's games, is that there are performances, like we said in this episode, to be worried about, and there is usage rates to be concerned about. But overall, it is still week 2, and we want to be ahead of the curve on certain things, right? So things to be ahead of the curve on. Scataboo, potentially, right? Things to be ahead of the curve on is buying low into a guy like Saquon Barkley, potentially, right? Not buying low, but buying him at a price that's affordable.
I disagree with buying Saquon.
Before the rocket ship takes off. I'm just saying in general, things like that.
The going to explode. That's why I don't want to buy Saquon.
Is looking at players that haven't been performing to expectations.
Next week, I'm going to be wanting to buy into McLaurin. Not this week, but next week.
Looking at why they didn't perform to expectations. Was it that the usage wasn't there? Was it that the defense played well?
And I still think buying into Njoku is a good thing to do. He's not be expensive, but I still think buying into Njoku is a good thing to do.
Yeah, like if I'm sitting there with TJ Hawkinson, I would definitely consider, also trying to get into Njoku, something like that. But that, but the thing that's the thing to think about when we go on Thursday, we'll talk a little bit more. I'd
also really be wanting to buy into Jettis. People are down on McCarthy. I'm not worried about him, and Jettis is a guy that I am targeting, trying to get.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And again, I'm also if I'm doing my part, I am doing everything to try to get CeeDee Lamb on my team, guys. I'm not going to flag plant. I'm not going to flag plant him. Yeah, Darius Slay's burnt toast, absolutely trash. But I'm not going to flag plant CeeDee Lamb, but I am going to say, like, yeah, it was an overtime game, but the usage is gonna be there. He's gonna he had 2 20-point games in fantasy, and those are considered basically like, okay, he wasn't performing to expectations earlier in the game and then caught fire. And then the first week, if he had converted on a couple of those targets, he would have been fire again. I just like person in the chat said earlier, they were buying into Puka. Yeah. Like now is the time before that rocket ship takes off. And for some players, it's not too late yet. And this by looking at
Collins might not be too late.
You look at that by looking at the DFS numbers as well. So when those lineups come out this week, looking at the numbers of certain players and seeing how they've adjusted, we'll see how kind of like the general consensus of people views a certain player. That Jonathan Taylor's price has gone up. You could have bought him real low week 1, but a lot of people, myself included, were concerned and still are concerned how Daniel Jones is going to affect those short yardage touchdowns, which he is. He's going to affect them. But there are going to be days where we know this. There are going to be days that he's going to have 30 points and days that not. A guy to really think about, I'm going to throw this out there into the ether, and it'll be the final thought. Guy to think about is this Kyren Williams, Blake Corum situation. Blake Corum's got 8 carries in the red zone.
Yeah,
okay.
Does.
I'm not saying that you're going to get anything crazy out of Blake Corum, but I am going to watch it for Kyren because he did get a lot of usage, but not as much as previously he's gotten in the past. Weather's nice. It's like 60 degrees. Not cold yet. We're going to get a cold spell very soon. And Wumbo, final thought here. Lamb and Brown style guys, will get there eventually. There's only so much crying behind the scenes that coaches can take before saying, just throw the guy the ball. He's pissing us off. That's CeeDee Lamb. That's A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown did get the targets. The A dot was low. That's a concern. But in general, Players like that to target. All right, guys. 3:45 Eastern on Thursday. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the chat. Oh, wait, let's answer Santiago's question here before.